And it's kind of disappointing. And we could probably prevent some divorces if people just had this covered ahead of time. Within 6 months to a year, that chemical, that crazy chemical that makes you want to swing from the chandeliers, it dies down. And it is replaced with another chemical. The first one I didn't define, I didn't tell you because I can't pronounce it, I have to admit it. Starts with a P, ends with an E, lots of syllables. I wasn't a chemistry major. The second chemical that takes its place is called oxytocin. That one I know. It's also released when you eat ice cream. So that's just an easy fix for those of you who care. But oxytocin is the let's settle down, buy a house, make babies chemical. It's also the chemical that's released after sex when people want to cuddle. It's the cuddle hormone. This is the thing that tends to take the place of the first 6 months hormone. So it's not a nasty trick, and it happens to everybody. And the relationships that make it for a long period of time have an understanding that those chemicals are going to wax and wane a bit, and you didn't do anything wrong. You're still as hot as you were in the beginning. She is still as hot as she was in the beginning, right? It's just things have calmed down. Because if you had that same adrenaline rush throughout the entire relationship, you would be exhausted. Nobody would be sleeping. You'd hardly get to work, right? Everybody remember the beginning? It's crazy, right? That's why you signed up. So chemicals in the brain are in part to blame for the high and then that crash that sometimes happens. But I don't want you to worry about the crash, because what follows that is something that's far more sane and still deeply fulfilling. That's when the relationship gains roots. All right, so we're going to wrap up in a couple minutes. Thing number 1, choose wisely. Thing number 2, maintain mutual respect. Thing number 3, don't personalize differences. Thing number 4, this takes 30 seconds, prioritize the relationship. If you want it to live, you must make it a priority. It is its own entity. And I say even the strongest relationships need water. Cacti needs water. Sometimes when we have a really rockin' relationship, we think, you know what, this thing's going to last forever. But if we don't nurture it, it will not last forever. They do not manage on their own. And for me, what I tell people is, do things like date night. Acknowledge when there's an issue and set aside some time to problem solve the issue. It's essential to do it. Have you ever left anything in the fridge, forgotten about it, and found it like weeks later? I'm here to tell you that stuff morphs. Sometimes you don't even recognize it. It's the same with issues in relationships. If you don't address them earlier, they will not go away. Promise you they will not go away. They end up in my office looking really messy. Prioritize the relationship, thing number 4. And thing number 5 for me is to always have hope and to know that there's very little that we can't get through. Even if that means that there have been betrayals and there needs to be a process of forgiveness. I see people and I see couples every week who have had betrayals and who are on the mend as a couple and healing. So I know that there's hope. And all it takes sometimes is just a little extra effort and some patience, and to know that forgiveness is a process. It's not an event. It won't happen overnight. We usually want it to, right? I said I'm sorry. Can't we just get over it? Anybody ever feel that way? I know when I've made the mistake, I'm like, can we really? I'm sorry now. That's usually because we feel crummy. It's going to take longer than that. Your only job, if you made the mistake, is to hunker down and have the patience for that other person to have their forgiveness process and know that it will happen, especially if they're sticking around. Okay? So there's hope, and there are resources. And on the tips and tools page that you've got, at the very bottom, there are several websites. I encourage you to look at Mark Gungors. He has like a 15-minute, if you Google him, 15-minute YouTube video, funniest thing ever. Share it with your partner. That's the File Door, Men's Brains, Women's Brains. You can laugh together. I gave you Dr. Harley and Dr. Chapman's websites too, and the EMDR website for anybody who's interested in what that's all about, how to treat combat stress.